Well, good evening, and we are reconvening our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, April the 20th. And Council has just finished an in-camera session where we were discussing and receiving some legal advice with regards to an upcoming tribunal LPAT hearing that we are involved in. So coming out of that, I do have a motion for Council to consider, and it is resolved that Council support the revised 4-story proposal from Brock Developments as per the discussion with legal counsel during the in-camera session of Tuesday, April the 20th. And I would look to a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan, and a seconder. Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay. All right. So like you, I imagine, I was disheartened by the Premier's announcements on Friday. All of us have our own particular areas of concern given our own individual likes and priorities. Some may see restrictions or new rules that don't make sense to us because they affect our personal concerns, while think others aren't being affected. It is important to remember that everyone is being affected by COVID-19 and the pandemic, and it is a burden that we all share, although it will show on us in different ways. It is a big province, and what makes sense in Toronto and the GTA on the surface may not make sense here. However, it has been made clear these last few weeks that we are all connected by a very fragile healthcare system. And so we all must participate in maintaining it to ensure it is there when we need it. As much as we look to government for answers, this is a time for our own personal accountability, and it's essential for success. This virus is not going away. It will be a fact of life for the foreseeable future. And the only assurance any of us have is a rise in vaccination so that the spread slows. And that rise, of course, in availability is dependent on many things and largely out of our control. I think it's safe to say that we all share frustrations around many aspects of the pandemic. My frustrations may be different than yours, but the one thing that we can agree on is constant judgment and scorn is not doing anyone any good. When venting, and I can assure you, I do my share, just ask my family, becomes anger, our own personal mental health suffers. In connecting with family, friends, and residents, it seems that the last week or so has been very emotionally difficult for everyone. Perhaps maybe the worst week yet when dealing with the constant barrage of restrictions that we are under. As I've said many times, being physically distant does not mean being socially apart. Reach out to family and friends. Keep in touch, pick up the phone, or send a text. Should your mental health be challenged, please make use of the many community resources available. A personal check-in to see how we are doing is a good idea. You may not even be aware of how the stressors have been affecting you. It's been said that at different stages in our lives, the signs of love may vary. Dependence, attractions, contentment, worry, loyalty, grief, but at the heart of it, the source is always the same. Human beings have the rare capacity to connect with each other against all odds. It may feel like we have a lot stacked against us, but find it in yourself to connect with people who are important to you. In all my years in office, I've trumpeted the strength and character of Lucan Biddulph across the province, and I am here to tell you that our community is unmatched. We have had many successes because of our character: Relay for Life, Bacon Fest, of course, Hockeyville. When called upon, our residents always do us proud. We need to channel that energy into the responsibilities before us now. It is that commitment and dedication to a greater good that will surely lead us to better days shining through. So with that in mind, I asked you for good news stories so that I could share with our community. And I want to thank you, my fellow councillors, for sharing. So the following shout outs and thank yous to the following community members. To Sheena and Dave Clark, thank you for organizing a neighborhood scavenger hunt. From what I understand, it was a tremendous success, all the while ensuring it was COVID safe. You brightened up some kiddies' lives and provided a very fun and family-friendly event. To Ashlyn Reed, you've taken it upon yourself to highlight and champion our local businesses during our initial 28 days of stay at home. And it is so encouraging to see small businesses supporting other small businesses. That is what helps build community. The residents of Granton have done a great job of raising money for their speed sign. It is gratifying to see this during these challenging times. And I also understand that all of the garden plots have once again been spoken for the Granton Community Garden. So stay strong, my friends. We do have challenges in front of us, but we've got a lot going for us. We are in the last leg of the race. Dr. Alex Summers from the health unit reminded me last week that the last leg of the race is always the toughest. So you know what? Let's just bear down, get to that finish line, because once we cross it, it will be all worth it. Okay, so we need to go into the Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act to just consider a number of applications tonight. And so I would ask for a motion to move into a public meeting to sit as a Committee of Adjustment. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Reagan. All in favor? I think that passed. I think I saw all the hands up. Okay. So the first one we've got in front of us is a consent application with Moray and Joan Watson. And this will seem a little bit familiar to some of us, to us. We had a similar application in front of us a little while back. This time I'll hand it over to Dan Fitzgerald, our planner, to walk us through the application.
That's for the chair. Thanks, Mayor, and hello to all the members of council tonight, sitting as committee. So as noted, the purpose of consent application B15 2020 is to sever a residence from a farm, which is considered surplus by the applicants. So as you may recall, the application did come before council on December 15th, where a recommendation was adopted to refer the application back to staff to have the owner reduce the proposed size of the severance lands from 4.8 hectares to a size that would comply with the surplus dwelling zone, which in this case is a maximum of 1 hectare. The owner was also required, as part of that decision, to identify an individual who would qualify for a farm consolidation as a requirement of the resident surplus to farm severance application. The application has since the applicant, owner in this case, has entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Mr. Thomas, and the application has been revised to show a severed lot that would have a proposed frontage of approximately 79 meters along Stonehouse line and an area of approximately 0.9 hectares or 2.2 acres, which would be occupied by the single detached dwelling, detached accessory structure, as well as the sanitary services and well. The lot to retained in this case would have an approximate frontage of 328 meters along Stonehouse line and an area of approximately 40.3 hectares. So the applicant has also applied for consent application B3/2021, which is an easement to accommodate the existing geothermal loop that is under a portion of the cropped field area. Everyone can see that there for reference. As the committee may recall, the subject property as a whole is a 41.4 hectares parcel of land that's located on the west side of Stonehouse Drive, or Stonehouse Line, and it's south of the intersection at Stonehouse Line and Observatory Drive. It contains 2 areas identified as significant woodlands in the Middlesex Natural Heritage System study, one being at the back of the agricultural property or west portion, and the second being located along the southeastern boundary. The property also is partially regulated along a portion of the rear and south boundaries. The property is an existing agricultural parcel of land and is surrounded by agricultural lands which are in crop production. The lands are designated agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural area and natural areas in the township official plan, and they are zoned general agricultural A1 zone according to the township zoning bylaw. During recirculation of this application, based on this revised plan, planning staff did not receive comments from the public. No additional comments have been provided from internal agencies based on the revision as well. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and township official plan generally do permit severances of dwellings considered surplus to farm operations, which are the result of farm consolidations. General criteria for this is as follows, which is generally that the residence was constructed prior to 1999, that new residential dwellings are prohibited on the remnant farm parcel, provisions for the appropriate sewage and water services are in place, the severed parcel be limited in size and only be as large as necessary to accommodate the servicing of the dwelling. In terms of the proposal, the house was built prior to 1999. The dwelling is habitable and the severed parcel would maintain private services. And staff are satisfied that the house is considered surplus to a farm as a result of consolidation. To achieve this, a condition of the consent has been added that the lands will be required to be transferred to Mr. Thomas or a subsidiary under his care and control. The proposal does also seek to maintain the existing accessory building, which is located at the back of the residential portions. Appropriate conditions have been added to the consent to ensure that the chief building official is satisfied that the structure is adequate to be maintained as a residential use. Additionally, the accessory building would meet zoning requirements as well as setbacks. So planning staff are generally satisfied that the criteria for the proposed severance of the surplus residence to a farm operation for the lands has been met or can appropriately be addressed through conditions of consent, and are recommending that the consent be approved. And regarding the easement, planning staff support the consent for the easement and deem it appropriate as a solution to accommodate the existing geothermal system without impacting the viability of the existing farmland. As such, planning staff are also recommending the application for easement or consent for easement B3/2021 be approved. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dan. Are there any questions from council or the committee at this time? Councillor Westman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, not so much a question, but I'm relieved that there were able to be some additional works done so that they could make this happen. I was still very concerned about the trees, that plantation of trees, and that seems to be taken care of quite well. And so, yeah, this is a much better looking proposal, and I'm glad to see it.
Okay, thank you. Now I know that we've got some people who have registered to speak, or I don't know if anybody wants to speak to the application. Mr. Thomas is the agent. I don't know, has he joined us?
Andrew Phillips is here. I'm the lead for Mr. Thomas, if I could. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Phillips. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to let you know that Mr. Thomas is here with me, so he can hear as well. And that Mr. Thomas is now closed on this property, so he is the owner. His company is the owner as of the end of March. And we had a number of conversations and email exchanges with Mr. Fitzgerald, and we're able to come up with this configuration. And we're satisfied with it and his report, as well as the conditions that he's suggested be approved by council. So we're here and we're happy to answer any questions you have. But I don't think that we really need to expand on anything that Mr. Fitzgerald has said.
Great. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Phillips. And then Mr. and Mrs. Vandenberg, I know that you registered for this application as well. Did you have any comment that you wanted to make or question at this point?
Yes, we were actually wondering this geothermal easement. You know, we all know that severed properties or any farm like in the coming years could change hands. How deep is this? Does that never affect a farmer who is farming it? Because if something gets damaged, then of course you will get disagreements between the house owner and the farmer. Who's going to be responsible for that?
Well, I don't know if anybody can see into the future, but I don't know, Dan, whether you had an explanation as to how the easement would work. Maybe that's.
So through the chair, with respect to easements, the reason why we do require consents for these types of easements is that they basically run in perpetuity with the land and they cannot be discharged. So in this case, the geothermal system, which is a benefit to, in this case, the severed residential portion of the lands, is the beneficiary and basically is allowed to maintain the system as is required based on the agreement that they enter into on title of the property. And it basically, with as I noted before, with consent of the easement, it remains on title in perpetuity of the requirement of that geothermal system.
Okay. Did you have any follow-up comment, Mr. or Mrs. Vandenberg?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those were the three on that application. Any other further comment from council at this time? Seeing none, then you do have a recommendation from the planner, and it's quite a lengthy one, but with the conditions and everything, so I won't read it. But if council or if the committee was in favor of that, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to accept the planner's report and recommendation. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman.
Motion to accept, yeah.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay. And all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next one, B-2-2021, and this is another consent application. And Dan, back to you.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to members again of committee. The purpose of this application is to seek consent from council to sever a residential lot from an existing parcel of land located in Lucan, which is municipally known as 175 Stanley Street, with the effect of establishing a new residential lot that would accommodate a future construction, of a single detached dwelling. So in this case, the subject property is a 0.79 acre parcel of land that is located on the east side of Stanley Street, on the southeast corner of the intersection at Stanley and Walnut. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling, as well as an accessory building, and maintains its own access to Stanley Street and is also on private services. The applicant, as noted in the report, is requesting consent to sever a lot that would have a frontage of approximately 18.28 meters along Walnut Street and an area of approximately 0.3 acres. The remnant residential parcel would have a frontage of approximately 46.87 meters along Stanley Street and an area of approximately 0.49 acres. The lands are designated settlement area in the County of Middlesex official plan, residential in the Township of Lucan Biddulph official plan, and they are zoned first density residential zone in the Township zoning bylaw. A large portion of the lands is regulated by the Conservation Authority as a portion of a flood fringe area. Notice of the application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with the Planning Act. No concerns were received prior to writing the report. The municipality subsequently has received correspondence from the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority today, noting that they were not in support of a severance application, as it would further fragment land through an existing regulated area. However, they did note in their comments that should township approve the severance, that they would apply conditions all development be located outside of the regulated area. So the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, as well as the local official plan, generally do permit lot creation and promote infill intensification to achieve growth objectives within existing settlement boundaries where it is deemed appropriate. Policy also generally speaks to the servicing hierarchies, as well as clarifies that development should proceed within settlement areas that are on full municipal services. In this case, the lands would be municipally serviced and as recommended, be included as a condition of consent. So taking the above into consideration, as well as the comments from the Conservation Authority, the township has clarified with the applicant, which is as shown on the attached site plan to the planner's report, that there is sufficient land available to a severed lot to build a house that is completely outside of the regulated area. So as a condition of the as a condition as recommended to be included with the applicant is notifying any future purchasers that Section 28 permits may be required, and that would be dealt with during the building permit stage proposed this lot. So given the proposed parameters of the lot, it would also meet the existing zoning provisions in terms of frontage as well as area. And it does represent good opportunity for infill development. This type of development is the preferred form, as it does promote a more efficient use of land and infrastructure, while also reducing the potential need for expansion of settlement area boundaries. So given the above, planning staff do recommend that subject application be approved, subject to all the conditions as outlined in the planner's report. Thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Great. Well, thanks very much for that, Dan. I already see hands up. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dan, it's just a question for the consent recommendations. Page 6, number 3, it says the applicant pay $1,000 in cash in lieu of parkland dedication to the township for the severed lot. I don't recall seeing that before. I'm just wondering, why is it attached to this application?
Through the chair, yes. So that's actually included in the township fees bylaw as part of the planning application. So when lots are created through consent, the individual is required to pay a parkland dedication.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. All right.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan on this application? Councillor Mastarakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dan, you received the information from Asable today, you said? So the applicant knows about the information then already? They heard this from you?
Through the chair. So in advance of the applicant submitting an application for review, I did have discussions with them as well as the Conservation Authority. So they were fully aware of what the stipulations and recommendations of the Asable Bayfield would be through a result of an application. In those initial discussions, and as can be seen on the documents supplied with the planner's report, there is a sufficient space that's completely located outside of that regulated area. It was verified as well by a survey. So we didn't necessarily have concern, I guess, from a planning perspective, that future development would be infringed upon on that lands, because it does provide a sufficient building pocket to completely located building outside of any type of regulated area. So
Okay.
Based on that, we were comfortable with supporting a recommendation for approval.
Oh, thank you, Dan.
Any other questions, comments, council? So I know that Mr. Bast and Ms. Simons are also joining us as attendees. I didn't know, or as the applicant's owners, did you have anything to add, or did you want any comment made at this point? Either Mike or Jody Lynn?
No, we're okay.
Okay, thank you. So if there are not any other comments from council, you do have a recommendation in front of you in the planner's report. And again, it's quite lengthy with the conditions. So I would ask for a motion from the committee to for either acceptance or denial of the consent recommendation as set out in the planner's report. I'd look for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor? To accept?
Sorry, yes, to accept.
And seconded? Councillor Regan? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next application. This is actually a minor variance application at A-2-2021. And back over to you, Dan.
And through the mayor to all members of the committee. So this application before the committee is with respect to a property that's located at 35025 Sainsbury Line, which is located on the west side of Sainsbury Line, south of the intersection at Sainsbury and Mooresville Drive. And they are requesting a minor variance for permission to place an accessory building within the front yard. If everyone can see that there. The subject property is approximately an 8.8 hectare parcel of land. They are situated within an agricultural area with lands that are in crop production to the north, east, and south, as well as an extractive industrial M3 zone to the south. They are designated agricultural area in the County of Middlesex official plan, agricultural in the township official plan. Additionally, the lands are zoned general agricultural A1 zone in the township comprehensive zoning bylaw, which does permit the use of single detached dwellings as well as any associated accessory use. The parcel is regulated by the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority and is recognized as a natural heritage feature and a significant woodland in the Middlesex Natural Heritage System study. To this regard, the applicant has completed a development assessment review, or a DAR, which has gained support from the Conservation Authority for the proposed location of the development on the lands. So as shown on the plan, the owner is requesting approval to construct an accessory building on the lands, which would be located in front of the proposed location for the house. The zoning bylaw requires that accessory buildings are generally located behind the front wall or front plane of a main use on the lands, and in the case of a single detached dwelling. So due to the unique characteristics of this particular lot and the existing natural features, it is noted that the placement of an accessory building in an alternative location on the land could present further impacts to the environmentally sensitive areas. Staff have reviewed the proposal against the Planning Act tests, the local official plan, as well as the local zoning bylaw. The proposed format of development is in keeping with the residential character of the area, as well as the agricultural nature. Staff also believe that the proposal is minor in nature and would not pose a negative impact to neighboring properties, given generally that the location of the accessory building does not abut any existing development. It would also also be located behind an existing tree line, which would screen it from the road. Additionally, staff note that the proposal meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, as it does not exceed the size of the main use on the lands, nor would it, in the opinion of staff, detract the main use of the property. Lastly, staff is satisfied that the proposal meets the intent of the official plan, given that the residential designation, agricultural designation of the land does support residential uses, as well as the ability to establish accessory uses for residential purposes. So given the above, planning staff is satisfied that the requested location of the accessory building does satisfy the Planning Act tests and does recommend that the application be approved. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Dan, for that one. And Any questions, comments from the committee on this application? Okay, I see Mr. Bissonette has joined us. Did you have anything as the applicant that you wanted added above what Dan has presented to us, Roy?
No, I think Dan's covered it fairly clearly. I have no other comments.
Great, thank you so much. All right, if there's no further comments from the committee, then I would ask, as you've got a recommendation in front of you, for a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. Councillor Westman, is that to approve it? Yeah. And seconded by Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we do need a motion to then reconvene our regular council meeting to sit as council. So if I could get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Mastarakis, Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. So tonight, we actually have two delegations in front of us, and at this time, it gives me, I see Lisa's just bringing them in, but it gives me great pleasure to welcome Lindsay Brock, our Director of Library Services from the county, and Lee Robinson, the supervisor of the Lucan Library, and Doug Warnock, the supervisor of the Park Hill Library. So welcome to the three of you, and I will turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor to council, I'll just give a little bit of an introduction and then turn things over to Lee and Doug. But thank you for allowing us to present to you tonight. We appreciate this opportunity to update you on some of the unique services available to your residents. So the pandemic has required Middlesex County Library to change almost every facet of our service model. And I think we've been successful at creating services that operate both in person and virtually to support county residents. And alongside these more traditional library services, we've also had the opportunity to work on projects that expand our role as community connector and community partner. So tonight we'd like to update you on two of these projects. So first we have a presentation on the Youth Crisis Shuttle Project. And as the mayor said, Doug Warnock, our Park Hill branch supervisor, and Lee Robinson, our Lucan branch supervisor, will take you through this presentation. And then we'll have a presentation from the library's community navigator, Josh Smith. This position launched in September, and it really was an example of perfect timing because his help is really needed now more than ever. And finally, we also have Pauline Andrew, Social Services Manager from the county, to update you on the Social Services Relief Fund and the projects that this fund are supporting throughout the county. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Lee and Doug.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Lucan Biddulph council members, and municipal employees.
Lee, I'm just going to interrupt you. If you guys want to turn your camera on, that would be great. If you can, can they do that as attendees in the webinar? I think they can, but maybe not. Maybe that's
I don't see an option to do that.
Okay,
yeah.
well, Kathy, Lee, sorry to interrupt, it's Lisa. Do you have a presentation that you're going to put up on the screen?
Yes, I think Tina already has that actually. Or
okay, I was gonna say because then I could promote them to panelists, and then that.
And sorry, this is Lindsay. I can put the presentation up as well if it's easier. If it's easier for me to page through the slides.
Yeah, sure. And so sorry for the interruption. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna just put you back out for a second, and then I'm gonna promote you to panelists. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second. Thank you.
Gotta love virtual meetings. There's Lee. And Lindsay.
And so now you should be able to share the presentation.
Perfect. I'll do that now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, here we go. Get this started here.
Okay. Sorry. Well, thank you again, Madam Mayor, Lucan Biddulph council members, and municipal employees. Thank you for providing the opportunity to speak to you this evening about this project that we feel so strongly about. I'm sure many people know me, but for those who don't, my name is Lee Robinson and I'm the supervisor at the Lucan Public Library.
Hi there and good evening. My name is Doug Warnock and I'm the supervisor of the Park Hill branch. Lee and I are grateful for the opportunity to meet with you and speak with you this evening. This project has been developing over the past year and a half and has many different models proposed before the arriving at the one that we're here to present to you tonight. So I'll start out with a little bit of the background and how Lee and I came to be involved with this program. So in October of 2019, the library was approached by Minds of London Middlesex. The organization is a locally operating social innovation lab located in London, but who have a mandate to represent the greater London Middlesex community. The library was invited to attend an annual event known as the Minds Convening in October of 2019. The purpose of this meeting is to gather stakeholders and allies of mental health work together to brainstorm new interventions to pilot in the community. From ideas proposed by the group, several were chosen to be developed further. Next slide, please. The idea of a crisis shuttle was proposed to service rural communities and those without access to reliable transportation. Being that Minds focuses on transitional aged youth, identified as those aged 16 to 25, it was determined that these members of our community experience greater difficulty accessing transportation discreetly and safely to support good mental health. Slide, please. Over the past year, we have been meeting regularly to produce a prototype to model in our communities, specifically in Lucan Biddulph and North Middlesex, but it has expanded to Strathroy and Exeter recently. And I'll hand it over to Lee to expand on this work.
Thank you, Doug. Slide, please. As Doug mentioned, he and I enlisted with the Crisis Shuttle Group to address the transportation challenges in the county and to bring a county voice to the table. Since February of 2020, the Crisis Shuttle subgroup has met approximately monthly to discuss a plan of action. In March of 2020, like so many, we had to pivot due to COVID-19, but we feel we came back with an even stronger plan than before. Slide, please. The Crisis Shuttle program went live with a soft launch on December 1st, 2020. Currently, the program is providing free transportation to transitional aged youth through a partnership between the Canadian Mental Health Association, Star Taxi, Minds of London Middlesex, and Middlesex County Library. Youth who contact CMHA's Reach Out 24/7 line by phone, text, or web chat will be triaged by the responding professionally trained counselors. For those who are deemed to be at low to moderate risk and who wish to attend CMHA's Mental Health and Addictions Crisis Center at 648 Huron Street in London, Star Taxi will be contacted directly by the Reach Out counselor. Transportation is then provided to and from the Crisis Center. This service is free to the client and available 24/7. Slide, please. In order to provide a supportive and safe transportation service for youth experiencing a mental health crisis, training has been provided to drivers through the support of CMHA and Minds of London Middlesex. The training consists of the Safe Talk Suicide Prevention Program and a customized course created by CMHA, which, after group consultation, covers the topics of understanding mental illness, challenging common myths, what is crisis, youth in crisis, de-escalating angry, hostile, or aggressive behavior through effective listening, appropriate verbal responses, and body language. This is in addition to the in-house driver training already offered by the owners of Star Taxi. Ensuring the safety and support of those who utilize this service, as well as the drivers who provide this service, is of paramount importance. Now I'll hand it back to Doug to discuss funding and future goals.
So the next steps for this project are twofold. First, we have to keep the conversation going with partners. We continue to meet regularly to discuss the model, determine what's working, and address any issues that arise. As Lee mentioned, the program launched on December 1st with a soft launch promotional campaign in order to be mindful of our limited budget at the time. The pilot began with an anticipated 20 rides available based on an approximate cost per ride of $140 for round trip. Further promotion has expanded to a greater number of agencies and cross-promoted on the library social media accounts and website. Paid promotion has also taken place through the CMHA Middlesex social media account, and a press release was developed with the aid of Lisa DeBoer, so thank you very much for that, the Economic Development Officer for Lucan Biddulph, which gained attention from several local media outlets and was distributed by the Lawson Health Research Institute, which is the parent organization of Minds. Slide, please. The second and directly related next step is reaching out to the broader community, leveraging existing relationships with community groups, and seeking outside funding resources. Lee and I have received generous support from several groups in our communities, including the Optimist Club of Park Hill, the Lucan District Lions Club, and the Optimist Club of Lucan. The Wraith family of Lucan have also expressed interest in providing funding for this and future mental health initiatives in the area. Next slide, please. Minds works to develop these interventions in consultation with community agencies in order to allow for a warm transfer of successful projects back to the agencies that will help keep them operating. The partnership with CMHA and Start Taxi looks to be a great fit for this to take place, and Lee and I will remain part of that discussion. Just to finish up, it has been a really exciting it's been really exciting to be a part of this project. Seeing the strength of community agencies coming together to tackle an issue through collaborative thinking and being a part of that discussion has been a wonderful experience. And we'd like to just open it up to any questions you have now. Thanks very much again.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Doug and Lee, for that presentation. Before I open it up to council, I just have had the opportunity to sit in on a few meetings that the group has had, and I can tell you that it really is an exciting initiative that has been spearheaded, and all the players at the table are so committed to this program. And I've seen this presentation before. It was presented to the library board at county, and I did say, and I'll say this continue, if only one person takes a taxi ride, then it will be a successful program. And I just want to thank Doug and Lee, all the representatives from Minds, from CMHA, and Lori from Star Taxi. She's been really invested in this, and if anybody knows her, she really is committed to the community, and I don't think that this program could happen without Star Taxi's partnership in that. So questions and comments from council? I think I saw Councillor Regan's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you. First of all, thank you very much for this program. And the reason I'm saying this, I'm looking at the numbers that you have from 2018, 2019. I imagine it might be a bit higher, but it's interesting as an online teacher for the last year. My age group's a little bit older, but I engage with my students a lot about conversations about stresses and things that they're having. So now that's I appreciate this, because this now gives me another resource for them. And there are a lot of rural students that I have that besides having Wi-Fi issues, but there are other things going on, but I didn't realize, I didn't know about this. So again, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And I'll be passing this on to some of my students so I think can benefit. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Any other comments from council? Okay, well, thanks so much, Lee and Doug, for presenting. I think Lindsay's staying on for the next presentation, but certainly you know that you do have a community that is very supportive of this program, and we look for further updates as time goes on.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, so continuing with the business of the Middlesex County Library System. Joining Lindsay is going to be Josh Smith, the Community Navigator, and Pauline Andrew. And actually, Lindsay did introduce them, the Manager of Social Services. As they come on, Lindsay, I don't know whether you've got some background before we hand it over to them.
Just basically what, sorry, through Mayor to the council, just basically what I said at the beginning. This project, this position, the Community Navigator position, began in September, and it's funded through community homeless prevention funding. And Pauline can definitely speak to that as well, because she helps manage that portfolio through social services. So the money is flowing through to the library. And Josh, so his focus is providing supports related to homelessness and housing instability, but he's really a multifaceted service where he can help connect residents to really any, just about any agency for anyone who's struggling. And so he can speak to that in more detail. So I'll just get our presentation going here for you. And there we go.
All right, thanks everybody for having me. I really appreciate taking your time for me. I'm going to go over a quick presentation here about what I've been doing, what the role has been looking like, some stats, and then of course I'll leave it up for some questions there at the end. So start off, I am the Community Navigator for Middlesex County Library. This is a new role for the county starting in September. I just kind of go over what I am doing. So a Community Navigator is essentially, it's a service to help people in our county get connected with the proper resources. Primarily that's looking at like social services, supports and stuff like that. What I've been doing is I've been meeting with people, determining what their needs are and making sure I'm matching them with the correct service to help them maximize their potentials. I've been doing that through conversations, assisting with referrals and applications, advocating on the behalf of the residents, and also providing some workshops and clinics as well. Primarily online right now, of course, but hopefully in the future, I'll be offering some workshops and clinics that are a bit more mobile and in person at the different library branches. So these are the different services I have been assisting with. This is not a comprehensive list, but these are the highlights for sure. So the first one here, I have housing supports. I am going to that into a lot more detail in my next slide. Primarily because that's the biggest service I've been providing, but I'll go over the other ones here as well. So if someone comes to me looking for supports, I can point them to youth programming if they're kind of match that age group, employment services, that's one of their needs. I can get them connected with clothing and food supports, connections with educational and literacy programs, social service applications, which is a big one, especially when you're looking at ODSP and CPPD applications, because they are quite involved and do require a lot of additional supports. And EI, of course, is pretty topical right now with the CRB benefit as well. Mental health supports, community legal services, addiction services, and then I also have birth certificate applications there at the end as well. Another major service I've been offering beyond housing, I'd say is probably the second most sought after service I've been offering is birth certificate applications. Going through the application with the resident and helping them fill it out and getting all the correct information they need to pass it along. And anything and everything in between. Basically, if someone comes looking to me looking for supports, I don't like to leave anyone empty-handed. I always do whatever I can to make sure I get them connected with a service, whatever it may be, whatever their need may be. Even if they don't necessarily qualify for my service, I make sure they get connected with the right service that can. So housing, this is the big one. So with the other services I offer, a lot of it is referrals and connections with appropriate services. When it comes to housing, there isn't necessarily a service offering that for the general population in the county. And so since it's not really being offered, I'm kind of been covering that on my own. So what does that exactly look like? A lot of it is people come to me looking for housing supports, which could be assisting with the social housing application, which is primarily the rent geared to income. I've been seeing a lot of that just simply because of the affordability of it and the high cost of market rent right now. It's people's only real option, especially on social assistance, is to go through the social housing route. But it is a pretty in-depth application. It's 10 pages plus a few additional documents need to be filled out as well. So I've been assisting with that. I've also been authorized by the Housing Access Center in London, who manages the social housing list, to be able to request for urgent status as well for an applicant, which would bump them higher on the priority list for social housing. I also do have here mentioned, it's listed here as the acronyms of COB and Community Housing Bridge Program. Both these programs are currently exhausted, but essentially what they are, it's again a social housing aspect, but it's more of a rent supplement program rather than rent geared to income units. It's a bit more of a mobile service. And I had been offering that when it's available, but it's a pretty popular program. The funding tends to get allocated pretty quickly once it's available. So, and beyond social housing, I also help with co-op housing. There's 2 units in Strathroy that are considered co-op, which is more affordable units. Connections with emergency housing and transitional housing. There's not a ton of options in the county, but I've been helping that as well. The only emergency housing option right now in the county is through Women's Rural Resource Center, but they also do offer transitional housing as well. And even beyond that, I do offer some general housing search assistance. I help them explore the rental market if it's within their budget, kind of point in the right direction of where they might want to look to find appropriate housing ads and stuff like that. And then even beyond just looking for housing, I help people who are in housing but are at risk of losing it. There's a number of different services I connect them with to help them maintain their housing, whether it's if they're at risk of losing housing due to rental arrears or anything like that. There's all kinds of programs I can help them access and look into. I can help them explore, the eviction process, if it's legal, if it's not legal, and if they may want to investigate that further on the legal side. I can definitely help them with that. I've become pretty knowledgeable on the Residential Tenancies Act through this role. And so people can reach out to me for just general knowledge about that. And then for more in-depth stuff, I do have some services I can refer them to for the more legal side of things. And then a few some data and statistics here. This is up until the end of previous month. So in total, I've helped 176 Middlesex County residents and provided 278 different services. So the kind of numbers there will show you that people are often accessing my services more than once or needing more than one thing at a time. And I've been providing that. It's almost becoming rare at this point to meet with someone and they only need one particular thing. It usually through conversation branches out to quite a few more other needs that aren't being met that I can help them out with. I did have my first webinar through my workshops. It was based on social housing. It was just a general information session. I hosted that back in February. I had 15 people attend that first one. And I'm hoping to have another webinar probably next month or so. Likely going to be based off of the Residential Tenancies Act, but I'm still figuring that one out. And the final point here, I always like to bring this one up, is that through helping people, I've received 20 referrals from 20 different community partners. And I think it's important to note this one, just to show how needed this service actually is. So these are community partners will be other organizations who are reaching out to me to help their clients. Because with for whatever reason, the clients they're servicing, their program doesn't necessarily meet all their needs, and so they would reach out to me. It's also important to know there's 20 different ones. It's almost necessary for my role at this time to take in these outside referrals. As you can imagine, it is difficult to start a new program in the middle of a pandemic, host it through a library that's kind of close to the public. So that is definitely a barrier that we've had, but through my connections with community partners and networking, I've been seeing a dramatic increase of word of mouth referrals and just people reaching out to me. We've also done some advertising as well, which I believe has helped with that. But yeah, that's kind of a brief little input into my life there recently. Like I said, it's been just over 6 months now. I guess about 7 months now, I guess in total. But it's been great. Lots of great reception in the community, both from the residents and from community partners. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm definitely available to answer.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Josh. That's, I think, great presentation, and I think it's important that our municipalities get to know you and the role that you're playing for the whole of the county. So any questions or comments for Josh? And Pauline's here too, and she's manager of social services, so I'm sure the two of them can answer anything that you might pose to them. I think I saw Councillor Reagan's hand up.
So I just a comment and just a question is, first of all, I'm just wondering, and maybe for Lisa, have we advertised this? Have we put this on our website for our residents? I don't know, because I know we mentioned that about the previous presentation. I'm just wondering if we're doing it with this one.
Yeah, we will be for sure, Daniel. It's not quite yet, but it will be
Okay.
up.
The other question too, I was just wondering is just supports with respect to social housing. I asked that because I actually used to, when I worked with the City of London many years ago, used to work with that with social housing and affordable housing. So I'm just wondering if that's something that you're working on or work with people for that type of housing.
Yes, I'd say that's almost the highest sought after service I've been offering. So through social housing, I've been helping people apply for it, explore that option, get them on the wait list, helping them kind of get priority status while on the wait list to kind of take some of the weight off. It is something I always make sure I'm very open with when I'm dealing with any of my clientele, is that it is a great program, but it is a long wait. Right now, on average, without any priority status, you're probably looking at 5 to 8 years to be granted social housing in the county. I can do a little bit of that to help with that. Like I said, priority status, I can bump it down to just a few years, but it is still a pretty significant wait.
Just a quick follow-up on that, if I'm sorry. So what are the steps? Like, are there any steps being taken that you know of that just to make that wait list go from 5 to 8 years to not, less? Because that's a long time.
It is a long time.
I know there's a priority list, and I know a little bit of how that works. But I'm
so there's priority list. It's a 3-tier list. There's the special priority, which is the quickest, which can be under a year. It's primarily for people fleeing domestic abuse. And then there's the second tier, which I can kind of manage, which is homeless status. And then there's just the general chronological list is what they refer to it as. In terms of things being done, there has been some things done to help with take the burden off the list a little bit. I touched on it briefly in one of my slides, but COB, which is the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit. What that is, it's a rent supplement program. So people who qualify for a list or who are already on the list could potentially qualify for COB. It's a rent supplement program, but one of the conditions of accepting COB is that if you're on the list, you get removed from it. So that was kind of done with the idea to take some of the burden off the list. But like I said, it's a very popular program. When it gets renewed, usually yearly so far anyway, it's a fairly new program, but when it opened up applications again in March, all the funding was allocated within 48 hours. So it's a very popular program, but that was I think my understanding is that was one of the reasons behind it, the creation of that program, was to take some of the burden off the list. But and there's been some other things done, some minor things. Previously, an applicant could turn down 3 opportunities to take a place. Now it's just 1. So someone has to either accept the place that they've been offered or they're off the list. So there's been a few things done. I don't know how much has affected the timeline in terms of a wait, but there has been some things done.
Pauline, I don't know whether you've got anything that you can share beyond what Josh has with regards to what's being done to help our residents.
I think part of the issue is that there's no movement with regards to the social housing. Everybody's staying put because they, unfortunately, if they leave, they may not get in again as quick, or they waited for many years and now they're in their housing, and to figure, if they come out of it, then what? So there's no movement hardly at all in Middlesex County, people leaving and people getting social housing. The other thing that's really important for our rural communities and all rural communities is the market rent, the rentals. So that's what our residents and our clients rely on, is that market rent, rental place. And with the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, that is so important for us to receive that funding for our folks in the county, because it really helps with the rent, the supplement of the rent. So without that, it's full market rent. And as we all know, a 1-bedroom can go up to 900, 950. And when somebody's on Ontario Works that is in receipt of 763, it's very challenging. So to have this funding not available after 2 days, and London felt it too. They didn't receive as much as they thought as well. So the COB funding is very important for us to have in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, folks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the team visiting us tonight? Councillor Mastarakis.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I got to congratulate you, because I'm sure with COVID and everything else that's happened, programs, appeals, I understand the process has all been backlogged a bit. So we do appreciate what you guys are doing. Is there anything, I guess, municipalities can do to help facilitate or support what you guys are doing in any way that allows us to do that, I guess?
For my program, I just promotion, really. The more people I can help, the better. I can't necessarily do anything about changing the market rent or the housing list, but I can definitely help people access it, navigate it, get on there. Yeah, that's really, in terms of what I'm doing, the biggest issue I am addressing right now is in terms of accessing my service, is just the advertisement and promotion of it. Like I said, it's since I've begun, and especially like this last couple of months, it's been pretty crazy in terms of the amount of people I've been helping. The name definitely is getting out there. People are accessing my services a lot more frequently, which is great. But yeah, just making the service available and knowledgeable to your guys' residents would be perfect for me.
And if I can just, sorry.
Yeah, one more follow-up. So is there going to be a Josh 2, a Josh 3, and a Josh 4? What's the plan for this?
That's above my pay grade.
One of the things that we're hoping when things open up, that Josh will be the traveling community navigator. So there will be opportunities for community members to come and meet Josh in all the comprehensive libraries. And that was the goal initially.
Yeah.
To offer, workshops and to be available if community members have questions, and to meet him. So yes, I mean that's the future goal when all this craziness stops. So.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the points that I wanted to make, was that, yeah, our intent is, to make sure that Josh has a presence in the Lucan community, specifically at the Lucan branch and in our other comprehensive branches. And this is a pilot project that currently is running until March 2022. So like Josh says, promoting it, getting as many residents able to connect with Josh, those are the, that's what we need to justify the position, really. I think that's really one of our goals as well, is to see this work continue as long as it possibly can. And so the more we can spread the word about the program, the more people we can work with, the more successful we'll be.
Thank you very much.
I was just going to say, to Councillor Mastarakis's point, to be able to start this position during a pandemic where you're having to reach people, and in the space between September and March still have 176 connections. It is pretty impressive. And I guess, when you say, Pauline, and Lindsay, about traveling Josh around the community, around the county, you can only imagine once he is in our library, people will get to know him, why he is doing what he's doing, and the connections that will be made beyond Strathroy. I don't think it's any secret that for the most part, when it comes to social services, they're mostly accessed through Strathroy residents, and that's obviously for a variety of reasons, but that's not to say that there aren't those right across the county. So certainly looking forward to the day when we can actually welcome you physically into our community. And the other thing too is you had 15 people attend a webinar, which again, I think doesn't seem like a lot, but in a pandemic, when people don't have access to technology, or that perhaps maybe we do, I think that 15 actually is a pretty good start.
Yeah, I was happy with that number. It was primarily community partners, but I expected that initially. But my end goal, of course, once libraries are open, I do have a kind of a traveling schedule of hitting the different comprehensive libraries. I will be offering different in-person workshops, clinics, that kind of thing. And I actually am in Lucan, visiting Lucan tomorrow to assist a resident. So right now I am pretty mobile. I mean, of course, I'm limited to my abilities to helping, but primarily working at home in Delaware. But I've also been maintaining 2 days in Strathroy currently, hosted at the Strathroy Motor Inn.
Great.
While the library is under construction.
Yes, which is exciting. All right, is there any other questions or comments? Well, seeing none, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, Lindsay. It's great to welcome you into my Lucan Council. I see Lindsay a bit, and I see Pauline every once in a while at the county building. But thank you for joining us, and I know that we'll look forward to sharing this information with our residents. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, moving into the adoption of the minutes, and I realize as I'm going through my notes that when I reconvened our meeting, I did want to just make notice for those watching that Councillor Mastarakis has declared a pecuniary interest for items EDC-4-2021 and EDC-05-2021. And those reports are coming up later in the evening. So or later in the agenda. So I just wanted to make sure I got that for the record. All right, so in front of you, you've got actually the minutes from our special meeting from April the 12th. And if there wasn't anything to be amended from that meeting, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those as circulated. Councillor Westman and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor? And that's carried. Business arising from the minutes. I think they're all ongoing. I don't believe anything needs to be spoken to. And was there anything in the minutes that needed to be added to business arising or council wanted to be added to? Okay, correspondence. There's a number of items there, and staff has pulled one item for consideration. And Ron, I will get you to speak to the resolution received from the Township of Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The resolution there, 9.1, really, I would like to think that council would consider supporting what they're asking for. And what they are asking for is that as part of the infrastructure funding announcements that come down from the federal and provincial governments, that fire services, fire equipment, fire halls, that kind of thing, obviously those are getting quite expensive items. So they are asking that those items also be considered under the infrastructure funding program put on by the federal and provincial governments.
Okay. Any questions for Ron on that communication? Councillor Mastarakis.
I would support support that for the fire department, the infrastructure. It's we're a growing community. Things are getting stretched tougher with every community. The cost of equipment and how often it needs to be updated is increasing as well. So I think we need to support that motion.
Great. So I can say that you would move that endorsement?
Yes, I would.
Great, thank you. And seconded, Councillor Regan. Is there any further discussion on that motion to endorse? Okay, then all in favor of that? And that is carried. There weren't any other ones to speak to. I did much the same reason as the one that staff pulled that. I was interested in K. It's actually a resolution of support from Zora Township, our neighbors at Zora, where they were supporting a resolution from the municipality of Tweed with regards to joint and several liability. And I know that over the years we've discussed it a lot. And Ron, I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that, because I would hazard to say that this would be another opportunity for us to endorse this one as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would echo that that sentiment. We've I don't know, I probably lost count how many times we talked about this joint and several liability issue. And just to summarize what that issue is in the case of, say there was a severe car accident where somebody was left a quadriplegic or something that was going to cost a lot of money to support them for the rest of their lives. And if the township, for example, had say a stop sign was proven in a court of law to be slightly more faded than what it should have been according to the standard, for example, and we were found 1% at fault. If we were found 1% at fault, then, for example, the award was $20 million, and it was a car accident between two vehicles, typically somebody in the other vehicle would have $1 million or $2 million liability. So even though the township is only found 1% at fault, we could shoulder the majority of that claim. And that is really the crux of the issue with the joint and several liability claim. So we continue to try through our insurance company, through AMO, to try and get the government to look at that issue.
Okay, questions or comments on that? Then I guess I would ask for if council so agreed, mover and seconder to endorse that resolution as well. Councillor Regan?
I'd like to move to endorse it.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Westman. Any comments? Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, were there any items that council wanted to pull from communications to discuss beyond those two? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and seconder to receive the balance of correspondence for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Mastarakis, all in favor? And that's carried. Committee reports, CEDC, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have not met. I'm expecting to set another meeting for the end or mid of May.
Thank you. Blue water recycling.
Yeah, I had a conflict. We had our municipal comprehensive review the same day as our blue water meeting, so I did not attend.
Okay, thank you. Lake Huron, Jeff and I were supposed to attend a session tomorrow with regards to some of their new proposal for how like the two water systems would be managed, but that looks as though it's been postponed. Nothing from fire boards, ABCA and Upper Thames.
We actually have our monthly board meetings next week, but we did have a special meeting earlier in the month. Just probably something that most people don't know. Some of the business that the conservation authorities look after are special permits for for hazard lands, building on hazard lands, and along the shoreline, there's a lot of change in how we're allowed to build and develop those areas because the shoreline is actually eroding rapidly. So last meeting, we actually conducted hearings for appeals to refusal of building permits. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting process, especially when you're dealing with huge environmental issues where, you know, if you go along the shoreline at Grand Bend and along the beach there in the area of Assault Bayfield, you'll see that the shoreline is literally falling into the lake, and it's happening quite rapidly. A lot of these cottages and properties along the shoreline were developed back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and now the next generation of family members are looking to either build on or renovate or completely rebuild cottages, and it's creating a really big problem. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents, and our meetings will be next week. I'll have a report at the next meeting.
Great, thank you very much, Alex. The Parks and Rec Committee met, and the minutes are in front of you. Paul, I don't know whether you've got anything to offer up on that one.
Yeah, we just we welcomed our new members. It was good to bring them into the conversation. Obviously, this is our first time meeting since the announcement for funding, so we started the discussion around phase 2 funding fundraising. It was a good conversation. We're hoping to have a conversation at the PRAC level and have something brought back to council very shortly. Our next meeting is scheduled either May 5th or 6th. We're gonna put that poll out.
Okay, Councillor Regan, I saw your hand up.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as chair, I just wanted to, again, just thank the new members. I know that council has talked a number of times about getting more and more people involved. We're a growing community. We have 3 new members. They bring a lot of experience, got them involved right away, Madam Mayor, so you know. We did start our some initial conversation, as Paul mentioned, on fundraising. I gave everybody homework that they need to do for next meeting. Councillor Mastragis and I did have a conversation a little bit about, we passed around some ideas. So I think we might be bringing those up again at the next Parks and Rec meeting, and then we'll have something to bring back to council, Madam Mayor. Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Now, I know in the minutes, all the committee members' names are listed, but just for the sake of those that are watching, Councillor Regan or Paul, did you want to let us know who the 3 members are from the community?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The 3 new members are Amanda Morrison, Stephanie Hughes Naharan, and Ian Watson. They all bring very different backgrounds and a lot of experience. I'm very glad to have them join our committee.
Great, well, that's great. And certainly on behalf of council, we want to thank Amanda, Stephanie, and Ian for volunteering and wanting to be part of the PRAC group. So thank you very much. I think I saw the Deputy Mayor's hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, for the first time, I actually watched half of that meeting. I wanted to let you guys know. I had to go back into our last council meeting. I had an inquiry. I had to go back and review something. And so I got to admit, it's the first time I went in there, and it's hard to get a grasp of people's dialogue, thought, the passion and care they have. And I was really impressed. I got to tell you, really impressed with watching it and the engagement and everything else. So no, it's very good. No, it's our meetings and us. I'm just not that good on the computer. I don't know if we can somehow separate our meetings, so they seem to get lost in history. So that if Parks and Rec doesn't have one, say, for 2 months, that was a great meeting, the new people introduction. And maybe they do that. Maybe they just type in Parks and Rec and it comes up. But it'd be each of our video meetings, YouTube video meetings, it'd be just nice if they were just in groups. So somebody does, if they just want to look at a council meeting, Parks and Rec meeting, CDC meeting, any meetings, it just, yeah. But anyways, I just want to let you guys know, great meeting and great group. So.
I'll leave that to Lisa to try to see if maybe she can do something on the YouTube channel. That may be out of our control, but certainly, like I think that Abby or Paul, you post the link to the meeting on the Facebook page, I think. So that's another avenue where it would take you to where you want it to go, right? So, but we can certainly look at that. Okay, moving on to staff reports. Ron.
Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm really having technical difficulties tonight, so I actually just got kicked off and came back on. So hopefully this works for me, and I'm not talking to air here. But so the first item, of course, with the new provincial order that's in place until May the 20th, we are trying to keep minimal staff in the office. That is basically one person to take the money, one person to do signatures, and one person to answer the phones and work the front counter. So we are, as best we can, trying to work from home to comply with that provincial directive and provincial order. Number 2 on my verbal update here is the OPP Police Services Board. Again, council may recall we've talked about that a couple times in the past about the fact that we are now going to be required to have an OPP detachment board. So all the lower tiers in the county of Middlesex, with the exception of Strathroy-Caradoc, because they have their own police force, are going to have to get together, band together, and put together a proposal to the Ministry of Solicitor General with regards to what constitutes a police services board. So I would like council to start thinking about what that means to them and whether they actually physically want a seat at the table, because obviously if every municipality, every lower tier municipality wants a seat at the table, it gets a little bit cumbersome in the fact that, obviously Thames Center and Middlesex Center is quite a bit larger, both assessment wise and population wise than we are. So if we have one, are they going to want 2 or 3, or how does that work? There is a minimum number of people on the board of 5. And of that 5, minimum 20% has to be community representation, and 20% is provincial appointees. So in the case of a 5-member board, one person would be appointed from the community or community at large, and one person would be appointed from the province. So obviously, if you go larger than that, then that percentage has to remain in place. So we actually have a CAO policing meeting on Thursday afternoon to talk about this. We're going to have Dean Croker at that meeting. So we hope to get a few more details, and we're going to sort of feel out who feels which way and how that's going to work out. So we will obviously be coming back to council with a more formal report. I hope that it will be a standard report that all the CAOs in the county bring forth to their communities. But the one thing I did want to sort of bring up with council was that the recommendation may come down that smaller communities like ourselves may have to band together with North Middlesex, for example, to have a joint representative at that table, whether that's a member of council or whether that's a past member of council, or whether that's a community member that each council wants to appoint. Regardless, council may want to consider that. That is one of the options that we will be looking at. So again, that is Thursday afternoon. So I hope to have some further information as we go forward. So other than that, a lot of activity. I was hoping to have a couple of more important updates, but I have not heard back from a few people, so I cannot comment at this point, but hopefully I will at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Any questions for Ron at this time? Okay, Tina. Oh, sorry, Councillor Regan, did you have a question?
I did. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Just, you might have mentioned it, Ron. When is the police board stuff have to be put together? I can't remember if I might have missed that.
No, I don't think I mentioned that tonight, but through you, Madam Mayor, to answer that question, the proposal has to be submitted to the ministry no later than June the 7th of this year. And I think what they're looking at is, it's not going to happen even in this fall. They're looking for implementation of of the board, of the Police Services Board for each detachment sometime in 2022.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Tina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick reminder, Council, that there is a special council meeting on Friday, April 30th at 10 a.m. And Greg Stewart will be in attendance regarding upcoming changes to the council code of conduct. And that's everything.
Okay, questions for Tina? Okay, moving on to finance. Catherine.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Council. The first report before you is the reserve summary. This report provides the balances of our reserve accounts and is for your information purposes. Reserves are essentially a savings account for the municipality, and they work as a strategy for funding certain programs and projects. The township has several reserve accounts set up to be used for things such as tax stabilization, buildings, road construction, equipment, and parks. These types of reserves are discretionary in that council can choose how to use these funds and can reallocate funds between them. And then we have other reserve accounts that include like the federal gas tax and development charges. And these types of reserves are obligatory. And that means that they're established due to legislation and can only be used for their specific purposes. And the balances shown in the report in the attachment include the 2019 actual balances, the 2020 projected balances, and just note that those balances are not audited yet, and they're not adjusted for any 2020 budget surpluses or deficits, and that will be completed once the audit is done. And the final balances will be updated at that time and communicated. The 2021 budget balances, these balances are based on the 2020 projected balances and then adjusted for the projects that were included in the 2021 budget. But as we know, things can change following the approval of the budget. So some projects may be put on hold and other new ones may come to light, such as the phase 2 project for the community center. Therefore, in the fall, during budget 2022 preparation, the reserve balances will be updated for the projected 2021 balances, which will assist with budget discussions. And then also want to note that the development charge balances showing for 2021 budget are the closing 2020 balances because we don't know what will be collected or used during budget at the time of budget. So we'll update those as we move along in the year as well. And that's all for that report. If you have any questions, or you can ask them now or email me as always.
Any questions off at this time on that? Councillor Mastarakis.
Are there any targets that we set for the reserve funds to be a percentage of, the arena, to be the percentage of the fire department? Is there anything like that we set goals or targets? Or have you seen that anywhere?
I don't know if we have targets. I think it's, if we have a long-term financial plan, you incorporate balances like where you want to move towards. We do have some where each year we increase the amount we put away during budget time by like 2% or 4%, the case may be, to help guide along that. We know we have a forward-looking equipment schedule, so we know what we need to have and kind of work backwards from that. And we can apply the same thing for other projects as we move along.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for Catherine on this one? Okay, she says, if you look at this another time, you can always email her question.
That's right. Okay, the second report I have for you is the budget actual report for Q1. And this report provides the financial results for 2021 as of the end of March. And of course, it's still early in the year, but the plan is to provide this information to council each quarter. And a rule of thumb for measurement could be that you want to be at 25% of budget at this time. However, this doesn't always work due to seasonality, timing of projects and activities, timing of receiving invoices such as utilities, and sending out bills. As well, there are allocations and adjustments that are only posted at the end of the year. The summary that I have has been prepared to show the operating results. That means that I've taken out any capital items. For this, I would say for the most part, we're on track, but however, the effects of COVID-19 continue, and some of this was already accounted for in the budget. But as you know, things change frequently with all the restrictions, but I'm assure you that staff is doing its best to minimize the impact. And as we move along the year, we'll be able to provide more information on that specifically. So this budget, first actual, the detail is also included for your information. And then if you have reviewed it or will in the coming days, then you can ask me any questions at any time. I'm free to go through it if you need it.
Okay. Any questions on the budget to actuals? Okay, what I would do then, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive both of Catherine's reports as information. Councillor Regan and Councillor Mastarakis. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, moving on back to planning. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. So the first item that we have is respecting the 2020 Planning Summary Report, which is the annual planning report that the county provides to Lucan Council and the township, basically giving an overall synopsis of what occurred in the prior year. So 2020 certainly was an unprecedented year when it comes to planning. And just for everyone's benefit, I know most people here probably know, but for anyone watching, the County of Middlesex does provide planning services for the township of Lucan Biddulph, and has done so through a planning servicing agreement since 2012. So in terms of challenges that we did face, certainly with the pandemic, we had associated emergency orders, which basically froze Planning Act timelines, as well as our abilities to deal with Planning Act applications or make decisions on them for approximately a 3-month period. Lucan Biddulph actually was, I believe, either the first or quickly followed by the first as the second public planning meeting that we held virtually to make a decision on a Planning Act application. So that was a very unique and interesting situation, and certainly now has become commonplace and common practice for us, right? So in terms of actual planning applications, as you can kind of see in the report, we are certainly trending upwards. Last year, we had 22 Planning Act applications in 2019. And in 2020, we received 40 applications that we had dealt with. And that's also discounting the 3-month period where we were not making decisions on applications. But keep in mind, we were still accepting and working on those particular applications in the background. And in terms of plans of subdivision and condominium, we did close 2 active phases, I guess, of planning subdivision files, which account for the Lucan Estates as well as Old Clover Village. So that was 33 single residential lots that were created through that. As well, we did receive 2 additional draft plan of subdivision applications, one being the Asable Field subdivision and the second being the Timber Ridge. In terms of county, I guess, county work that happened in association with or impacting the township, there was special project works that did occur countywide, which did have municipal benefit, which included the review of the county official plan for compliance with the changes as proposed in the provincial changes to the Planning Act. As well, there was the populations and housing projections updates that were presented and approved by County Council, and certainly familiar to this council with respect to the municipal comprehensive review that's ongoing now. So there are, just so for everyone's benefit, 3 growth scenarios that have been projected. We have a low growth scenario, a medium, or I guess middle of the ground scenario, as well as a high potential scenario. And that's projected to a 25-year period, which in this case would be 2046. We're looking at in terms of growth projections. As well, we did have, through those population projections, it is noted that generally across the board in southwestern Ontario, and specifically with respect to Middlesex County, we are experiencing what we refer to as a population trend of an aging population. We have our baby boom generation who is getting older, and our millennial and Generation Z populations that aren't necessarily replacing those in terms of labor. So that is something that we're looking at and dealing with moving forward, and certainly it will cause us to change our policies and perspectives with how we're going to accommodate that aging population moving forward into the future. We also did receive 2 applications to amend the official plan this year, last year in 2020, which have been dealt with. And we, I believe there's actually one before council this evening tonight too. So very interesting. We also had, I believe it was 14 zoning bylaw amendment applications, and also a amount of consent applications to create lots within the existing settlement boundaries. So that's very encouraging to see. In terms of subdivision or condominium units, we did see a very broad range of units that are either proposed or approved at this point in time. So, you know, as we have seen with previous presentations, especially with Stuart's presentation on the municipal comprehensive review, at this particular point in time, we do have you know, Ridge Crossing, Lucan Estates, Old Clover Village, Sauble Fields, and Timber Ridge subdivisions for a total of 270 low density, so single unit residential housing opportunities, as well as 342 medium density housing opportunities. That's pretty substantial in terms of potential unit development moving forward, especially into this year. We also had, I believe it was 5 site plan control applications that we dealt with at the municipal level. Primarily, those were dealing with the lands, the industrial lands, the north of Lucan, which we are seeing activity on, and individuals are taking on their agreements to facilitate construction of those particular lots. And we note that there was no local planning appeal tribunal hearings in 2020. And we also know that there will be, at least looking forward into 2021, one at this time, local planning appeal hearing. So with that said, I will open it up and answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. Certainly, planning, it really has grown just like everything else in Lucan. And I know that we certainly appreciate the work and the support that you give us in dealing with all the applications that come across your table. Any questions or comments for Dan on the report that he's presented? Deputy Mayor.
Maybe not on the report, but just on planning. Just have you had any comments from any of the developers or anyone that's come forward on the doing it kind of every other meeting, the planning?
Through the chair, sorry, I missed that. My internet cut out just when you said that.
We, you know how we've gone to every other meeting for planning in Lucan? That's new this year. Just wondering, have you had any comments from anybody on that?
Through the chair, no, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report? It's a lot to digest. Certainly, I assume that if anything comes to mind, you can always reach out to Dan through email, and he'd be happy to answer that too. Before he moves on to his next report, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive his report for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Masterakis, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and we have a site plan approval in front of us.
Yes, so through the Madam Mayor to members of council. So The second item that we do have on the agenda is with respect to site plan application SPA 1/2021, which is a site plan application submitted by Vandermolen Homes Incorporated to establish a 4-unit industrial building located in the industrial or phase 1 of the industrial land subdivision on the west side of Heenan Court. So the particular lot in question here is the the first lot as you enter into Heenan Drive off of Fallon on the, that would be, I guess, the southwest portion of the industrial land. They are designated industrial in the official plan, and they are zoned general industrial M1 in the zoning bylaw. So we have reviewed the application and generally are in agreement that the proposal does meet the intent of the zoning bylaw and does represent good planning. We have also recommended an amount of security, which is deemed appropriate based on the site works that are to occur on the lands. So in all, the subject proposal is consistent with the PPS as well as conforming to the County of Middlesex official plan, local official plan, and the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So with that said, we do recommend that site plan approval be granted for the lands that are owned by Vandermolen Homes or care of Dave Vandermolen, which is located at 1005 Fort Lucan. And I'm certainly available to answer any questions that council may.
Great, thanks, Dan. Certainly exciting to see that project take off. It'll make that area look good. Any questions on the site plan approval in front of us? Okay, then seeing none, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive and accept the planner's recommendation. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor. And that's carried. All right, thanks, Dan. And moving on to Public Works. We have a health and safety policy and procedure update, and Julie Overholt has joined us. So welcome, Julie. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining, and I'll hand it over to Jeff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and welcome, Julie, also. This is a report to give Council an update on Julie, what Julie's been up to, and give an indication to Council what to expect moving forward in the next little bit. So Julie and the township has entered into a program with the WSIB Health and Safety Excellent Program, and Julie's been the lead on that, and she's been doing a number of meetings and working with a number of municipalities in the county and in the area, and to go through this program. The part of the program is the idea behind the program is to provide an update on Lucan Biddulph's health and safety program and see where we can do an update on it. So Julie has at this point prepared 3 policies. The policies are ready to go to the department heads for comment, and then once those policies go through the department heads, they'll be brought forward to council for comment and review, and then to be passed by council. So that's good. And then as the 5 topics that are in the report, we'll move on, and Julie will start the next round there. And those ones look more like procedures, but they still will still make sure council's up to date on what's happening there. So that's basically the report for the update on things. And I'll open to council for any questions or discussion.
Great. So thanks, Jeff. Councillor Regan, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Jeff or Julie, just wondering, with that list of 5, is there anything urgent that's not on that list, or we're getting to the ones that we need to get to, that they need to be updated or looked at?
Yeah, as a group, through the mayor, as a group, and I'll let Julie jump in here also, but as a group, they were determined which ones should go in what order. So there was a plan in place. It wasn't to kind of flow through, but I'll let Julie comment on how she's making out with that.
Thanks, Councillor Reagan, and through you, Madam Mayor. We have a program in place already, and we've kind of looked through it myself, but I think it's just a matter of working through and updating what's currently already there and getting engagement from the department heads and staff and letting them know that it's there and how we use it. I don't think there's anything that we are missing that I can see that's urgent.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Julie.
Yep. Any other questions or comments on the report in front of you? Okay, great. Thank you. With that, Jeff's probably got some more, but I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Julie, for joining us.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I'll continue on. Thank you, Julie. That was great. I know health and safety is everybody's job to do, but it's good to see what you're bringing back to everybody. So, I have one update for council. We did have a non-compliance at the RBC theater, the RCP sanitary plant in Granton.
We're the only one there. Did you enjoy the show?
I'll say that till the cows come home. So we did for our monthly average for suspended solids, we did go over in March. This is not unusual. It usually happens when we have the snow melt or we have our large rains or that sort of thing, which we did have in March. So we did go over. The average is supposed to be about 10 milligrams per liter, and it looks like we were at 18.4. So we were over considerably for the month, but it is not unusual. Aqua is working on solutions to this. We've talked about a couple of ideas to try and handle the flows coming in. When the flows start to increase, we're looking at maybe some adjustments to the plant to try and handle as the flows all of a sudden hit the plant. It overwhelms the plant so we're going to try and get the plant kind of, lack of a better explanation, pick up speed faster when the flows pick up. So Aqua is working on a solution, and we'll see how that goes over the next little while. So, but this is not uncommon. This is basically happens every year at the melting point. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Okay. Madam Mayor, I don't really have any more. General staff and everything's going along like it should. The only other update I'll have shortly is the good news is that the master servicing study is basically complete. I'm going to be looking at reviewing a couple of things, and hopefully you'll hear a date at which we can bring something forward on that. So it's a big document. And there's lots of information, but that's good news. That's what we've been waiting for to get that in our hands. So that's good news. So other than that, I don't have anything else. I'll open up to any questions, Madam Mayor.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff at this time? I don't have well, maybe I do have a question, more of a comment, because I have a feeling that, yes, that master servicing report is going to be a large document. So hopefully there's an executive summary.
Well, yes, we'll follow that up.
I assume that's going to be a big one. Okay, thanks so much, Jeff. Moving on, Parks and Recreation, Paul.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I apologize in advance. My network bandwidth is low, it says, so I'm a little unstable over here. But thank you. As y'all know, this weekend was a busy weekend for us, back and forth with opening and closing of some of our amenities. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your comments at the beginning of the meeting. It's important to remind people to have patience right now. And I just, all the counselors, if you hear comments from the public, I hope you can help them understand that we're simply trying to comply with provincial orders and make sure as a municipality we're not offside. So, thank you to the public for having patience. We've got you back into the playgrounds. I know some of the amenities are still closed. There's some arguments on whether it's needed or not, but right now we're just still complying. So playgrounds are open, green space is open, trails are open, benches are open, tennis courts, skate parks, and ball diamonds and soccer fields are closed. So that is where we sit right now. We're still hopeful, pretty positive that, once this 6 weeks are over, we're going to be back to recreation. I know soccer and baseball are still very anxious to do something. We're working hard with them to make sure we can help them offer something, even if it's not through their leagues or whatever we can do to work with the residents to give them some sort of recreation this summer. On that, unfortunately, we're still not getting any resumes for our lifeguard positions. We still only have 3 guards right now, and only 1 is certified. So we're waiting for 2 to be certified. But unfortunately, with closed recreation, they can't have their test done. So that's where we're sitting at right now. It's not looking good. I know I discussed with Abby today, what kind of programming could we offer? But with 3, it's very hard, especially 2 are junior guards this is their first year. So, I really hope we get more. We've got it out to several different locations trying to look for positions. So if anyone knows anyone with lifeguarding experience or anything, please send them my way. We've been reaching out to surrounding communities to try and get someone on board. Hopefully we can get enough to have at least some sort of pool program this summer. Other than that, I'm open for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. And yes, I know last weekend was a roller coaster, and just thanks to your team for doing what they had to do to get through the weekend. And I certainly appreciate everybody's patience and understanding that, as you say, a lot of it's out of your control. So, okay, questions for Paul? Okay, thanks, Paul. Economic development, Lisa.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are pleased to finally present to everyone, to council, our final community improvement plan document, along with the supporting bylaws for approval tonight. I want to take this time to thank our consultants, Republic Urbanism. Jesse McPhail is with us tonight. We worked closely together to get this document done through many open houses and meetings and workshops. So we are very happy to have this coming before council tonight. So for tonight, what we're looking for council is kind of acceptance of the report prepared by Jesse and Paul, and then the passing of the supporting bylaws later on this evening.
Okay, any questions or comments for Jesse's joined us, or Lisa on the CIP in front of us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd like to also add kind of some of the next steps we'll be working on. So we will be meeting as a staff probably next week to finalize what parts of that plan we will activate for 2021. So that will come forward to council later in May, probably the first council meeting in May.
So I know that I don't know if, because one of the bylaws, of course, is the OPA that is associated with this. So I don't know whether Jesse wanted to answer, or Dan, the next steps as to what happens with that if approved at this level, because then it has to go to county, what the next steps would be for that. I don't know who wants to take that.
Madam Mayor, I can take that, Dan, if you want, or if you want to tag team this maybe. So the council will note that there are two separate bylaws tonight. So the first bylaw being the actual bylaw to designate a community improvement project area, as well as adopt the community improvement plan itself. There were some very minor textual changes that were identified through the development of the community improvement plan that we felt merited some minor textual changes to the Lucan Biddulph official plan. So that's the second bylaw that's before council tonight. And just with the County of Middlesex as the approval authority for official plan amendments, that bylaw, while being passed or supported by council tonight, that would authorize staff to go forward with an application for an official plan amendment to the county. But they do the changes that are being brought forward in that bylaw. They aren't something that's going to hold back the CIP from being implemented. It's just something that makes the language a little more consistent from a policy standpoint. So the township can continue with making plans to implement the CIP, and then the OPA will be kind of based on the county schedule. Dan, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, so through the chair, no, I think Jesse covered it well. So generally speaking, local or township council, yourselves here tonight, will adopt a recommendation to approve to county council, and then an application will be made. At the time, county council will then make the finalized decision in terms of the OPA. But your decision as well with respect to the CIP and the bylaw associated with that can be passed tonight and started.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, one last call. I mean, there was an extensive presentation at our last council meeting, so I know council's pretty well versed in what's ahead of us. So one last call for questions or comments. Seeing none, then what I would ask for is a verbal motion to accept the report as presented, and then the bylaws will be passed at the end of the evening. Councillor Regan.
Just motion to accept.
Yep, and a seconder. Deputy Mayor. And all approved. And that's carried. Thank you very much. And before we say goodbye to Jesse, I just wanted to thank you, Jesse, and Paul from Public Urbanism. It's been a great experience, and I just want to thank you for the document that you've been able to provide. As I sound like a broken record, I'm a huge fan of CIPs, so I'm happy to see this in our community, and I'm excited to see it roll out over the coming year and years ahead of us. And certainly to Dan for his input from the planning side, and then Lisa for being the staff lead. So thanks very much for that. Okay, Lisa, next one.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff have prepared a report regarding Dr. Mia Vergara and the issue that she's been having with finding a new location due to her current location will be demolished in the fall. So staff have been working with Dr. Vergara through the last few months to try and find a suitable location for her that was accessible as well. Of course, you know, Lucan downtown's kind of at a premium right now. It's difficult to find space, and when we do, I think the issue has kind of always come back to accessibility, and that of course is a huge issue for her and obviously her patients. So in some of the discussions that we've been having, staff kind of came up with the idea of maybe a mobile trailer office unit might be a temporary solution until she could find her permanent location, or she moves into where she was originally planning. Dr. Vergara kind of would like to invest herself in a property, so this kind of gives her the opportunity to kind of slow down for a minute and hopefully find something in a year that's a good spot for her to locate. So in that, we kind of searched out some options for mobile trailers. It seems to be they're very popular right now. They're impossible to find that exist already. We did find one company that would be willing to build it for us. it's about a 6 to 8 week timeline to construct this office. It would be accessible. It would have a washroom, 2 separate offices on either end. And when we presented this to Dr. Vergara, she was open to this suggestion. And she would like council to consider working with her to get this mobile unit in place for her. So we pass it back to council. It's kind of a discussion because there's some, we'd have to lease this unit and figure out some sort of arrangement with Dr. Vergara to accommodate her. You have the prices in your report for that. Her current rent is around $1,400 plus all utilities. So we were presenting this information to council to consider, and if this is something they are willing to consider, for us to kind of move forward and further investigating how we would service, where it would go, and an agreement with Dr. Vergara.
Okay, Lisa, questions on that report? Deputy Mayor.
Maybe with Dan on the phone here, Fitzgerald, or staff or Ron, what's the building, when's it scheduled to be demolished, or is it a case where they're actually kicking her out? And sorry if that's on the report, I missed it, sorry.
Our understanding, Madam Mayor, is the new landowner, which is Z Modular, has asked that the Dr. Vergara be prepared to sort of vacate the property no later than the end of September of this year. So that's kind of our time frame that we're working with.
And then, yeah, it'd be nice if we could, like, staff talk to Z at all about our problem and seeing if they would have consideration, if they're not going to demolish the building, to keep it active. Have we done that?
We did have a conversation in our initial meeting, because that kind of came out of left field to us, because initially the building was their first building, the rear building was going to be built first with some commercial space. She could have moved in there, and then they were going to demolish and build the front building. That was the previous owner's plan. That's not Z Modular's plan. To take advantage of economies of scale, they want to do both buildings at the same time. So that was their reasoning.
And they're kind of green light go soon on that?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have anything further?
Not at this time, no.
Any other comments? How many patients does Dr. Vergara have?
I'm going to take a guess on this. So she's probably rostered around 3,000 to 4,000. Yeah.
I think it's important to know that, as Lisa's referenced in her report, that the council over the years has invested in our doctors. So this is not something new, and I mean, we've shown that we believe doctors in our community are an important thing. So that being said, there's lots to consider going forward, getting into a relationship with like this. So, Councillor Regan, I saw you wanted to say something.
I think it's very important that we ask, I just me, but I think staff should investigate the cost of leasing and servicing that mobile trailer and supporting this doctor. It's 2,000 or 3,000 patients in our community. I think it's very important, and I'd support this, just so you know where I stand.
Thanks. Any other comments? I think that from my vantage point, I've received a number of emails from or messages from various community members concerned with what's going to happen to Dr. Vergara. Should we not be able to find a place. And I really commend the work that our staff has done to support trying to find something for her. You know, healthcare is not a municipal responsibility. And, you know, she's a doctor bringing a great service to the community, but it is a private enterprise. So this isn't something that, you know, we would do for, you know, Kathy's widgets. But, you know, to what Councillor Regan said, having that number, that caseload, there's more to consider. And personally, I would be supportive in at least getting more information to see what it would look like. So.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Councillor Westman.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I too have received some concerns. I'm thinking most members of council have heard something on the subject. I think one of the things for a lot of our seniors was the convenience of having a blood clinic, like a blood testing clinic for them with Dr. Vergeer's office. So there's, you know, and there's also accessibility as far as travel to the location. So, I mean, there was some locations, I spoke with Mia for a little bit, and there was some locations that they were kind of considering that weren't going to be, you know, as close as where she is now. So, yeah, I'm very hopeful that we can get something sorted out for her soon, because a lot of people in this community really count on her. So, thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on this? So Lisa's included a recommendation in her report, and it's at the top of her report, which I guess should be noted. We're changing kind of the formats of our report to put the recommendation at the beginning or at the top of that. So that was good to see. Anyways, there is a recommendation in front of you, and if council wishes, then I would ask for a mover and seconder on that one. Councillor Regan, to move that?
Yes, I move that. Yes, that recommendation. Yes.
And Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else, Lisa?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to councillor comments. Councillor Westman.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you for bringing up the positive news from our village of Granton over there. There's lots going on right now. The community gardens really inspiring, because there's going to be 8 plots actively producing produce, not only for the individuals that run them, but for our food bank. So that's going to be a great boost. Fundraising for the radar signs has been amazing. You know, the Granton Park Committee continues to be a huge supporter of our efforts in the community, not only with park equipment. They've made some donations there, and they're also our largest donor for the speed signs. We also received a donation from the Lucan Optimists, and I've reached out to some local business and to other service clubs in the area. The individual donations have been great, so we're well on our way to being able to get 2, one for either end of town. So there was a lot of feedback from the community to me directly saying, hey, you know, this would be great if we could get 2, and the support's coming in. So I'm pretty pleased with that, and I think that we got a pretty good community there that's just continues to amaze me. It's amazing and wonderful. So there's that. A lot of people were very pleased to see that the walking path and the green space was reopened on the weekend. I did have a lot of people reach out to me about that, and we're very happy to see that people can go down and use the park space safely and maintain their social distance. And there's been I've seen a lot of people down there walking, so that's good as well. That's our mental health is sometimes easily medicated by fresh air and green space. So that's great. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two quick things. One, I just want to remind people about cleaning up their little corner of Lucan Biddulph. I'll be out there tomorrow along Nicoline on the creek. So if anybody wants to join me, Deputy Mayor Manders, I'll be out there early. The second thing is for all you young people on the screen, as soon as you're eligible to book your shot, book it. Mine's booked. I'm going on Monday in Mount Bridges. So no excuses. Everybody get out there, get your shots booked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Regan. Any other councillor comments? Just on just what Councillor Regan brought up about cleaning up your corner of Lucan Biddulph. It is Earth Week, and Lisa's put together a social media campaign that if you clean up your little corner, to take a picture, and you can share it on social media, or you can email it to me, and you'll be put into a draw for a local $50 gift certificate to be used at one of our local businesses. So we can't have pitch-in day because of COVID, but everybody can pitch in and clean up our community. So that's great. And yes, when you're eligible, book your vaccine and have patience, but book the vaccine. Okay, if there's no other councillor comments, any changes to budget, any notices of motion? And then we will move on to our accounts and motions. So resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. For March 2021, $1,543,668.96. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Mastarakis and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Did the minutes, that one. Okay, resolved that if no one cares to speak to these bylaws on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, read a third time and passed, and that they be numbered 27-2021, designation of CIPA and adoption of CIP, 28-2021, OPA number 9, Community Improvement Plan, 29-2021, execution of site plan agreement for Vandermolen, and 23-2021, the confirming bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And with that, we will ask for a motion to adjourn at 8:23 p.m. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor. And that is carried.